It's Heath here from pickinglessons.com. In this banjo lesson, we're going to take a look at a traditional Australian folk song by the name of Go The Shears. We're in the key of G major, 6/8 time. Inside this arrangement, we have two versions of the melody. We have the basic version, which is great for a beginner, and then we have a variation on that, which would be perfect for a more advanced beginner or intermediate picker. In a moment, we're going to take a look at the first variation, the basic variation of the verse, and then we'll break down some exercises for that as well. Plus have a look at the G major scale in two ways, both the single string and the melodic version, just because that's how we're using those scales in this tune. If you head to pickinglessons.com, you're able to get yourself a copy of the tab that we're working from and the chart with the scales in it. You'll also find in the member section the next part of this lesson where we'll have a look at the chorus variation, basic variation, and then we'll have a look at the verse and chorus variations, the more advanced variations. So pickinglessons.com. Okay, so to start out this lesson, we're going to have a look at the G major scale in two ways. We're going to have a look at the single string version and the melodic version. So the single string version sounds like this. And the melodic version is this one. And we're using both of these inside this arrangement in both variations, the basic and the variation too. So let's start out by looking at these two scales. If you practice these and get used to how you play those with your left hand and your right hand, your picking hand, you'll really find that playing this tune and playing the two techniques, the single string and the melodic techniques, is far easier with some time spent on these two scales. So let's just go through them nice and slow up close, practice them after that, and then we'll move into the basic variation of the verse. G major scale, 1 octave, single string. 1 and 2 and G major scale, 1 octave, melodic style. 1 and 2 and Okay, so there's those two scale variations. Now, I do suggest that you practice those and get used to picking those, watching your fingers on the single string technique so you can really work on playing the thumb, finger, finger in your right hand. Take your pick between your index and your middle, it won't matter, but thumb and a finger, thumb and a finger. Try and alternate, thumb, finger, finger, and so on. Really handy for the single string technique, particularly the faster tempos. So while you're working on your scales, it's a great idea to try and do that, incorporate that in your right hand. The melodic technique is a similar idea. We're really using the finger then a thumb all the way through that. So finger, thumb, finger, thumb, finger, thumb, finger, thumb. It's an alternating type of pattern as well between the two fingers, but in a slightly different way, of course. So the single string and the melodic. So practice those up, keep an eye on the chart there because your fingering's all in there as well. So if you're not sure which fingers to use, have a look there, but it is an alternating picking we're really working on between thumb and a finger. Take your pick of which finger, index or middle, won't matter. Okay, so let's jump on into the first variation of the verse, the basic melody here. We'll run through it nice and slow to begin with, then we'll break it down and just have a look at some of the rhythm, some of the finger positions that we need, and a couple of little exercises to work on. Basic melody for the verse. 1 and 2 and 2 and and 2 and and 2 and Okay, so we are in 6/8 time. So the first thing is when we're counting this, we have basically two pulses in the bar. 1, 2, 1, 2, but we're going to break that down to the 6/8 note. So 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Our rhythm that we're finding within the melody here, first of all, there's a dotted quarter note or dotted crotchet we find on the first beat of the first bar. So that's the 1 and or 1, 2, 3. It's 3/8 notes. So that's the first pulse. 1 and 2 and. The next rhythm we have there on the second half of that measure, the quarter note and the 8th note. So 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. That rhythm structure we find quite a bit through this arrangement. So that was the first rhythm there. Dotted quarter note, 8th note. 1 and 2 and. So that rhythm there is very, very much used throughout the tune. So first 2 bars played together sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Pretty straightforward. Watch your fingers there. Keep an eye on the tablature if you're not sure about your right hand. You can get away with using your thumb a lot, but we're going to try and alternate like in the scale practice we played. So between a thumb and a finger. So thumb, thumb, finger, thumb, finger. Here we can just roll it. There are variations in there too. So that's actually not too bad as long as you're watching the rhythm. Really watch the rhythm. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Third bar is the same, 1 and 2 and. Fourth bar, got to hold that 5th fret there for the 2 pulses. So 1 and 2 and. So that's a dotted half note, which will carry over the 6/8 notes. So measure 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. We find ourselves moving up into this melodic position here. So that first finger on fret 4 and second finger on fret 5. If you've been practicing the melodic scale, you'll see that and it will make sense. So we started out in the open position, sort of the single string position. Lots of open strings, but then we're moving up and we'll find ourselves over the F sharp E there in the melodic position of the scale. So fingering wise, first and second, it's all in the tablature. Picking hand, thumb, thumb, finger, thumb, that works. So lots of open strings, but here in measure 5, we're still in that position for the melodic scale. Sometimes we're just going to roll in measure 6. Middle, index, thumb. Middle, index, thumb. That makes sense. It's just a backward roll, 3 notes. Here over the A7 chord, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. First finger there is fine. That'll do the job. Second finger's fine. That's okay. It doesn't really matter. Okay, the next part starts out in the same way as the beginning. But then let's look at the final 4 bars. Here we're jumping into the melodic scale, but we're going to start it off on a high A, and that's with finger 4 on fret 7. You could use finger 3 if you like. I'm using finger 4. And then we're going to run down the melodic scale, descending through the scale. So no variation, just a straight melodic scale. Starting on the high A though, then to the G. Watching that rhythm there, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and as we're playing that scale. And then the last 2 measures there, we have the open G, high G, and playing in unison, the other high G there we have on string 1. Just saves us playing that same note on the 1 string. We've got the open G, so let's use it. So melodic scale, open position, single string scale. We'll use the single string scale more as we move through the tune. The melodic position gets used a whole lot as well. So there's the basic variation of the verse. Both the single string open position version of the G major scale and the melodic version of the scale as well. So practice the 2 scales we started with. They will certainly help. Get comfortable with what your fingering is going to be doing in the right hand. There's always more than one option, but if you're comfortable with alternating between thumb and a finger, and in the case of the melodic scale, you tend to start with the finger then a thumb, depending on the arrangement of the notes, of course. But the same idea, alternating between the 2. Get to know the first part of this tune, the verse, and then jump over to pickandlesson.com and you will be able to keep working through the chorus basic melody, and then we'll have a look at the verse and the chorus variations as well. So pickandlesson.com, I'll see you there.